17th of the 11th, 2025. The time is 8 minutes past 8, and that means, as always, one thing, that there are a multitude of F1 centric threads at which we need to pull. We'll talk about Ferrari simulation settings. So too, we'll talk about Zak Brown. We'll talk about Toto, the boy who cried wolf. And of course, since it's race week, Las Vegas, round 22, we're going to have to talk about that. Also, in the first instance, however, I need to show you guys a couple of different things, because it's going to get techier than techie things over the course of the next 20 minutes or less. In the first instance, this is what the poster looks like, and I don't hate it, although they keep pitching Las Vegas as the next one, right? The bellwether as far as F1 promotions are concerned. But there is still a gazillion tickets left for this. So what's going on here, F1? Are you selling us Wolff tickets, therefore desperately trying to drum up a championship which is all but DEAD? Oh, and by the way, Lando Norris, 390 points. He goes in with a decent lead, eh? I make that by my very noddy mass. 24 points delta in hand. Oh, the humanity. I feel like it's done, chat, but if there is a dude on that grid capable of overturning substantial delta deficits in the Drivers' Championship, then he has a name. His name is Maximilian Verstappen. Here's what you need to know about Oscar. I was doing some maths. Oscar Piastri has not looked good for a gazillion years, as near makes no difference. In the first 9 races, he was gone clear, wasn't he? Nailing it each and every single juncture. In the subsequent 11, he's been nowhere, absolutely getting destroyed by the legend that is Lando Norris. And I don't know what's going on here. Some say that potentially Oscar Piastri is an enhorabuena driver. When he's in great form, nobody can touch him, as he was at Imola earlier on in the season. Like God tier Miami, you saw the way that he handled Maximilian Verstappen. But when he's not in good form, that he has this inability to leverage any semblance of resilience to get himself out of said circumstance. Now, Zak Brown, his team principal, has come out and he said a couple of different things speaking to that all is quiet on the Western Front, that Lando and Oscar are still the best of friends. I'm not sure whether I'm buying that. Is Zak Brown the one who's selling a snake oil and or Wolff ticket? Lando Norris, conversely, has not been too bad, eh? Lando Norris 2.0. Oh, the humanity. Oh, and by the way, Lewis Hamilton has been out jogging. Now, this normally means something, right? Pathetic fallacy. Some say portending. Roll the clip. Now look, you've passed this prologue. Firstly, you've got to say at the age of 40, soon to be 41, Lewis Hamilton hasn't lost a step as far as his motivation. That's the first thing. And the second thing, however, if past his prologue, every time Lewis Hamilton takes something like this pseudo first trap setting, somebody gets sacked. Who's getting sacked at Ferrari next? Therefore, is it Frederick Vasseur? Is it one of those engineers, mention no names, like Serra, the dude who was brought there to revolutionise Ferrari, put in place the infrastructure requisite to build themselves a god tier car, all of which they haven't done? Or is it somebody else? I don't know. You heard John Elkann talking about we need drivers who talk less and drive more. Well, over at Fiorano and Maranello, they were driving a lot over the past couple of days, weren't they? Simulation settings, 2026 settings, lest we forget that it is one of the biggest changes in rule and reg set in F1 history. Aerodynamics and power unit in conjunction with one another. Unprecedented settings. Therefore, Lewis and Charles Leclerc came out and said that the simulation, that it bodes well, that it's not an SF25 of a car, that the SF26 is a potential market leader, potential championship winner. Putting on my common sense cap, asking questions, trust but verify. I'm not sure that I can trust Sir Lewis and Charles Leclerc, given what John Elkann said the other day. What do you think the drivers are going to say? Well, the car's not very good. That in 2026, we're not going to have the requisite minerals to win ourselves a Drivers' Championship. Even if it was that, they wouldn't tell us. Of course they wouldn't, particularly after John Elkann's come out and chastised them, been so disparaging about his own team. What are we doing? And if past this prologue, stability and unity is exactly what you need to win world championship, to build yourself a team, just like Michael Schumacher and Ross Brawn and Rory Byrne and Jean Todt did back in the day. And that's everything that Scuderia Ferrari, as at the time of writing, do not have. Oh, and by the way, speaking of legends, Mika Hakkinen is bringing his little one. Imagine Mika Hakkinen, Ella Hakkinen racing cars now on the McLaren Junior program. What are we doing? Mika Hakkinen said the following, that Ella Hakkinen, his daughter, that her motivation is incomprehensible. She wants to be a racing driver at this point. She's a real badass. Don't hate it. Female drivers will rise to the highest level by 2030, whether it's Ella or somebody else. This new generation of Than is 40% female, and the sport needs to reflect that. Don't hate it, Mika Hakkinen. However, die-hard old grizzled F1 veterans will say something to this effect, that as at the time of writing, yeah, Jamie Chadwick's good, but anytime she gets near a feeder formula, left wanting as far as her ability to go head to head, that her automotive pugilistic unique brand of is lacking. What you need is a Michelle Mouton type, a Layla Lombardi type, a fire-breathing dragon of an F1 driver to break through and be the first, no, the next one. And maybe Ella Hakkinen is that. Oh, and by the way, talking of liveries, you guys will be aware at this juncture that they've ruled that 55% of the car will need to be colourful next year. F1 fans and the community are bored, sick and tired of carbon fibre. Of course, it makes sense that there is a agency in there. If indeed you want a quick car, it will be light, just like Nico Rosberg did in 2016. Remove, therefore, all of the colour, all of the weight-bearing colour from your helmet and the car. That's what they've been doing over the past couple of years, but it leaves the grid looking awfully monotone. Same. Williams, Las Vegas, they're bringing a sexy livery. Listen, I don't mind if it's black, but if it looks as sexy as that, bring it on, inject it into my veins, and there will be a gazillion other different special liveries as we go into Las Vegas Grand Prix weekend, round 22, T-3 to go. Oh, and by the way, have you seen this? Qatar GP, mandatory 2 stops. I don't know how I feel about this, chat. They've been trying to bring it in for a long time, haven't they? And now we get it. I don't know whether it's because Pirelli can't build the tyre compounds requisite to not do 2 stops, or whether they're just trying to make the racing more interesting, or maybe a portion of either of both of the aforementioned. I don't know. Chat, let me tell you about this as well. This is important. I've got to put some respect on Toto, the boy who cried Wolff's name, haven't I? He's not been bad of late, this Toto fella. Let me tell you this. Toto, the boy who cried Wolff, way back in the day, I want to say 2013, purchased 33% of Mercedes F1 team. He purchased that 33% for 165 million US dollars. Expensive, of course, but now, 12 years later, Toto, the boy who cried Wolff, is going to sell a portion, 5% of his stake, which will value the team entire at 6 billion US dollars. 6 billion, chat. By my very nutty maths, I worked that out, that Toto's just bagged himself 1.8 billion US dollars. Now, I know Toto was a gangbusters investment banker before. I understand that he was a billionaire coming into the sport, but any investment where you make that sort of moolah, 1.8 billion US dollars over the course of 12 years, listen, all heads must bow, all tongues must confess that Toto, the boy who cried Wolff, as far as investors, may be the greatest. That, ladies and gentlemen, is chaotic. And then you come to realise that Toto harbours aspirations shortly thereafter to become a Liberty Media team member to further the F1 agenda going forward in the medium and long term. I mean, you cannot. That, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury, is techier than techie things. Oh, and by the way, we need to talk about some Zak Brown, don't we? Because he said some things. He went on the High Performance podcast and he said a couple of things, and we're going to go through them. This is important. Charles, you're an absolute legend. I appreciate you. Ad infinitum, mate. Go on and listen to this Zak Brown stuff, because he likes talking, does Zak Brown. And I feel like he's not the root cause necessarily of why this championship could could fade to black, fade to boredom potentially. But I think there's something, listening to him talk about Singapore and defend his drivers and tick and cross all of the requisite PR boxes leaves a bad taste in the mouth. Almost, it flares up my allergies. Roll the clip.
It keeps our comms team on their feet. I think we're in a huge sport. The world's watching us, if you're watching Formula One. It is frustrating because you see stuff that is just so wide of the mark. Yeah. But what really does matter is what our papaya fans, the media that we know are doing a good job, our sponsors, our employees, and our families. That's who matters to us.
Interesting. Zak Brown, he's always been keen to tick the PR boxes, hasn't he? It's techier than techie things as far as Zak Brown. And I want to love it. I've got to admire and respect it. It would be disingenuous of me not to at this point. But it's not so much the what's as far as Zak Brown's concerned, but the hows, the way he goes about it. It's the packaging that puts me off and flares up my energies. Don't believe me? Well, let's have a listen to this and then we'll react. Roll the clip.
Awesome. I'll give you two examples. Both happened in Singapore. And this is how kind of strong I think we are as a team, because we also know when we see something, we'll bring it to each other's attention. So two examples of that. Singapore, we clinched the Constructors' Championship. Lando's on the podium. Oscar's in the media pen, which is down the road. Formula One Impromptu says, get the team up on the podium. First thing when we got up there, Lando and I went, man, Oscar's not up here. This is going to look terrible. But we know how that happened. He's in the media pen. This wasn't something planned. So we get up there and do it. And the first thing Lando and I said was, man, where's Oscar? But of course, the media narrative was Oscar's boycotting. We didn't want him there. And it was like, what are you talking about? And then when I was thanking Oscar on the radio, I didn't see where he was on the track. And he was in Parc Fermé in the process of shutting down the car. So when I was thanking him, it looked like he unplugged, like he hung up the phone on me. It's not what happened. I didn't even notice it. And then you get all the, Oscar's this, that, and Oscar noticed it and went, hey, make sure Zak knows I didn't hear him. So, we got each other's back. When we see something and it's not true, we kind of don't care what everybody else thinks, but we care what each other thinks. And so Oscar, when I went, hey, make sure Oscar knows this is how this happened on the podium. And he went, yeah, I figured it out. And then he kind of reciprocating and, hey, make sure I kind of just saw this. Zak knows I didn't hang up the phone on him.
Is it not draining, though?
We don't care, Zak Brown, about what anybody else thinks. Behave yourself, Zak Brown. You can't even say that with a straight face. Nobody believes you, sir. And herein lies the problem. I know you guys are going to say that you're too old. You're a grizzled F1 vet. Cameron, I know I sound like the old F1 fan at the bar. Back in my day, things were better. These guys were chiseled, would stop at nothing with a view to get themselves a millisecond of doable competitive advantage. And that's 1,000% my position. Maybe in 2025, things are changing. It's a drive to survive era. I get it. I understand it. But yeah, and still, these guys... Charles Edward, what is he on about, mate? Shut your mouth, Mr. Brown. It's exactly what as we've seen. 100% Charles Edward. You are asking us, Zak Brown, to disbelieve the evidence of our own eyes and ears. Chalk up Singapore to the game. Chalk up the British Grand Prix and McLaren's failure to invert to the game. Then chalk up the team order to call off Oscar Piastri's attack on Lando Norris at the Australian Grand Prix to the game. A copy, I get it. Sometimes correlation, comma causation. The former does not necessarily imply the latter. Copy, I understand. But what you're not going to chalk up to the game is when over the radio at the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, you told that dude, Oscar Piastri, listen, Nando's made a mistake in Q2. Do you mind giving him a tow? The only other protagonist in the Drivers' Championship, your rival in the other car. Do you mind, Oscar, giving that dude a tow to ensure that he gets to Q3? I cannot, no, I will not chalk that up to the game. That is egregious. Can you imagine being Oscar Piastri in the car, the plain-faced cheek to even come over the radio and ask such a question. What are we doing here? Is this altruism? Is this philanthropic activities? What are we doing here? This makes no sense, Zak Brown. So how very dare you, sir, in the High Performance Podcast, say such a thing as, we don't care about what other people think. That's all that you care about, Zak Brown. Listen, now, this isn't me saying that Zak Brown's actus rea in there. I don't know whether he's been putting his thumb on the competitive landscape weighing scales. I don't know. It's hard for me to prove. Sagan standard dictates that extraordinary claims, of course, require extraordinary evidence to substantiate them. And I understand that. But yet and still, Zak Brown, are you going to lie to us in the High Performance Podcast just like that? As if we are fools? No, I cannot. I cannot. This is crazy. Michael, Joe, Tigliori, what are we doing here? They're probably holding up the grid girls side. Listen, let me say this. He rubs me up the wrong way, Attic, the Zak Brown. There is something disingenuous about the fella. It makes no sense. And again, you guys are going to say, stop it, Cameron. It's 2025. Get off your historic horse and come into the 21st century. After I was putting this video together, I saw this. After pulling together the Zak Brown clips and again, High Performance Podcast, go and watch that. Then I saw this clip. I've got to share this clip with you because again, it makes me hanker for days gone by. F1 of yesteryear. Roll this clip and cover your ears for the week of it. This is important one. Roll this clip. Inject that into my veins. No further questions, Your Honour. That is what I'm talking about, chat. That's what F1 is now and has always been. Zak Brown and his thesis, the way that he operates the company, again, it's worthy of praise. Turned around the team when they had zero financial resources, when there is near as makes no difference, losing $200 million per annum. And Zak Brown's worthy of praise for that. Abso-flipping-lutely. A god-tier commercial mind is he. But yet and still, so many F1 fans, whether their drive to survive incumbents or whether they've been watching a gazillion years, will look on the way that Zak Brown and McLaren have been conducting their activities this year, and it will leave a bad taste in the mouth. I hanker, pine for years gone yonder. That's again, I'm conflating issues. I understand it. This is two separate entities. But as far as what F1 used to be, how can you watch and hear that noise and not do like me? Pine for years gone by, and then you come to hear this chat. Zak Brown had something else to say, didn't he? About Maximilian Verstappen. And I say this under the aegis of pining for years gone by in Formula One. Here's what Zak Brown had to say to The Telegraph. And again, all journalistic publications are created equal, but some are created more equal than others. Zak Brown said, quote, of Max Verstappen, that he can be a bruiser, too aggressive on track. His arrogance comes out. If you look at some of the greatest champions in Formula One, they've had some arrogance about them. They get their elbows out. Max has crossed the line on track a number of times. When? Well, in Brazil against Lewis Hamilton over time, a handful of passes on Lewis were overly aggressive. Then there's Zak Brown's words. And you know what? Some may say, Lewis Hamilton fans in particular might say that he's barking at the right tree. How can you argue with lap 46, I want to say 2021, turn 4? How can you argue with a straight face that that wasn't over the line from Max Verstappen? Well, here's your argument if we're playing devil's advocate. Surely in F1, if you've watched it since the days of Senna in the early 90s, since Prost, since Michael Schumacher, surely that's the one common thread that runs through the greatest, no goatiest of F1 peddlers, that as and when it desires the circumstance that they will overstep the line because there was nothing at which they will not stop if indeed they're invested in winning a championship. If there is a millisecond on the table, mention no names, Nico Rosberg, if there is a smidgen of advantage, then Schumacher, Rosberg, Lewis Hamilton, Ayrton Senna, Alain Prost will stop at nothing to accrue for it. Lando just another hill in 96. He got lucky. Best driver wasn't given a consistent car throughout the whole season. Lando's overrated. Listen, I think I hear you. I hear you, Liam, and you're far too kind as always. I'd say this about Lando though. I think I've got to give him some credit. I do have to give him some credit because he's been better than I expected. All season long, I've been challenging him on the starts that he couldn't get right. Now, all of a sudden, he's nailing the start at Mexico, 800 metres into turn one. He's been better, has Lando. He's filtered out for all of the F1 automotive pugilism chaff, the stuff that doesn't matter. And he's now focused in flow state. I hear you, Liam. I hear you. There will always be the knock on Lando Norris if indeed he achieves his hopes and dreams, his life goal of winning a championship of the drivers' variety. But I think he's worthy of some praise. You know who else is worthy of some praise? Mr. Maximilian Verstappen. So how very dare you, Zak Brown, talk about Max Verstappen as he's a bruiser, that he's too aggressive on track? You know, I would concur. I would offer you this, Zak Brown, that you're not aggressive enough, and that's why so many fans and F1 community members have had enough of this nonsense, this papaya rules, this rules of engagement over and above everything else. I don't think it works. I don't think it makes sense, and to be honest with you, it leaves me feeling allergic. F1, I would argue, would be a much better place but for Zak Brown and his excessive attention to these rules of engagement. You've heard about how much of a micromanager this Andrea Stella is. Listen, I like me some Andrea Stella. You've heard me again call him the Pep Guardiola of Formula One. He's always spoken about not necessarily wanting to be an upgrade, a silver bullet measure that will gain them performance and therefore championships, but he's always talked about putting the infrastructure in place, instituting for the working culture out of which can grow drivers and constructors championship green shoots. And I think again that's worthy of praise, worthy of mention. But on the flip reverse side, the equal and opposite downside as far as Andrea Stella and the way that he likes to micromanage that team, is that he will put McLaren fans off and F1 fans more broadly for the extent to which he wants to micromanage every single circumstance, every facet of Formula One. And that isn't Formula One. It's a living, breathing beast, a fire-breathing dragon of a sporting endeavour. And Andrea Stella, I think it's an exercise in futility for you to try and manage it. Therefore, every facet of it is not to be managed. There will always be an X factor, and I put forth this as my supposition, my principal point of contention as far as McLaren are concerned. But for them trying to interfere in every single circumstance at every single turn, mention no names, the British Grand Prix, Singapore too, Australia also, but for them trying to do that, they'd have a gazillion fans all around the world, but they don't, because they have been doing that and it doesn't fit well. It leaves me allergic. However, going into the Las Vegas Grand Prix, we know, if past this prologue, that they didn't go too well around here. It was too cold. It disables their durable competitive advantage under the aegis of tyre deg. We know that the MCL39 does really well in warmer climes, as it will do at Qatar and Abu Dhabi, the final two Grand Prix of the season. However, at Las Vegas, I think Maximilian Verstappen might steal the lunch money of Lando and Oscar Piastri. And I think from a driver's champion perspective, that might be much needed. Oh, the humanity.